Memorial Day Sonnet by Garrison Keillor. We're here to honor those who went to war, who did not wish to die, but did die grievously. In 1861 and in 2004, though they were peaceable as you and me, young and innocent, they knew nothing of horror. Singers and athletes, and all in all well-bred, their sergeants, mercifully, made them into warriors. And at the end, they were moving straight ahead. As we look at these headstones, row on row on row, let us see them as they were, laughing and joking, in that bright, irreverent morning long ago. And once more, let our hearts be broken. God have mercy on them for their heroic gift. May we live the good lives they would have lived.
So welcome to worship at the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Burlington, an open, welcoming, beloved community dedicated to justice and love and learning and joy and beauty and a move toward a better world. James is reminding me that we need to light the chalice. So now is when I'm going to say that this is an unusual service. The reason the sanctuary is almost empty is because it's not Sunday morning yet. We're recording this service early because it is Memorial Day weekend, because this is the day of the marathon on Sunday, and it's hard to get here at this place. So we're recording the service together, and I am so grateful to some members of the staff of this society, including Blake Ewaldson, who did our call to worship, and Christina Fulton, the director of operations. They're always here on Sundays, but usually we don't get to see them. We don't get to see them in front of the camera. James Stewart, Sam Wetzel, Erica Reef, we often do. Let us light our chalice. We can say the words together. We kindle this flame to remind ourselves of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. Thanks, Blake. And as we begin, as we do every week, we acknowledge that the land on which we have our meeting house is the land, the ancestral place of meeting and exchange for the Western Abenaki people. It is our work to understand that our stewardship of this land is one that we share, and our work to restore the injustices that have been done over the centuries is also part of that stewardship. There are some other announcements that Erica's going to do for us.
Two very special events are coming up soon. First, on Wednesday, June 7th, starting at 6:15, Endings and Beginnings, a year-end gathering with Reverends David and Tricia, Margot, Creative Arts Ministry leaders, James, Sam, and the choir. An informal opportunity to be together to mark all the transitions we are in the midst of as a community. Through poetry, song, and sharing, an opportunity for appreciation and reflection. Contributions are welcome for a potluck supper at 6:15 in the community room, and then at 7 p.m., a music and arts-filled service gathering here in the sanctuary. Also, please join us for a celebration of Reverend Tricia's ministry on Sunday, June 11th at 11:15 a.m. in the sanctuary. This will follow her final worship service as our developmental senior minister. There will be songs, tributes, gifts, videos, and messages from special guests as we give thanks for Reverend Tricia and for her ministry. Childcare will be available during this time, and the event will be live streamed for those who wish to watch from at home. A potluck picnic lunch will follow at 12:30 p.m. on the front lawn. In case of rain, the picnic will move to the community room. Please sign up online by June 5th to bring something yummy for the potluck, or to volunteer to assist in the setup and takedown. Tables and chairs will be provided, though you're encouraged to bring camping chairs and picnic blankets. Thanks for making this a great event.
Thanks, Erica. And before any of that happens, next Sunday, June 4th, we will be here in person again, and it is Flower Communion Sunday. So remember, if you can, to bring flowers or lovely weeds or anything from your garden, and we will make an extraordinary bouquet together. Come, let us worship.
And we'll worship by singing with one another. Hymn number 159, This Is My Song. We'll have the words on the screen for you to sing along. This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands of far and wide. This is my home, the country where my heart is. Here are my hopes, my dreams, my holy shrine. But other hearts in other lands are beating with hopes and dreams as true and high as mine. My country's skies are bluer than the ocean, and sunlight beams on clover leaf and pine. But other lands have sunlight too, and clover, and skies are everywhere as blue as mine. Oh, hear my song, thou God of all the nations, a song of peace for their land and for mine.
You will lose someone you can't live without, and your heart will be badly broken. And the bad news is that you will never completely get over the loss of your beloved. But this is also the good news. They live forever in your broken heart that doesn't seal back up. And you come through. It's like having a broken leg that never heals perfectly. That still hurts when the weather gets cold, but you learn to dance with a limp. I invite you to take a breath and lean deeper into a moment of reflection as I read the joys and sorrows for Sunday, May 28th, 2023. Sorrow that our member, Deborah Raggioni, who has served on the finance team and on the Welcome Ambassadors, is back in the hospital. Please send loving, healing thoughts and prayers. And joy that David Call is feeling so much better this week after a brief stay in the hospital and with his new pacemaker. Please use this moment of silence to call to mind the joys and sorrows in your heart today. May the joys and sorrows of each of us be the joys and sorrows of all.
Blessed Are the Makers by Reverend Marcus Liefert. O you who are makers, makers of beauty, of paintings and pottery and sculpture, blessed is the making. You who make with hands and hearts and minds, who make out of breath and bones and blood human lives, blessed are the makers. Blessed are those who make us laugh, who make jokes and faces and toys. Blessed are those who make messes, who make trouble and friends, and when needed, make up. Blessed are those who make do, who make it last, make it work, make beds, and make time for others. Blessed are those who make coffee and tea, who make conversation, who make meaning in the face of tragedy, who make merriment and awaken joy. Blessed are those who make peace, for they shall inherit the earth.
Erica and I both really like that reading, maybe for different reasons, but I like it because it's about what a good part of what congregations are about. People who make things, who persevere, who live life full of energy and hope. And in a way, that's what our offering is all about too. We take up an offering every week, and we do that because we have faith that the people of this congregation and the organizations in the community that we share our gifts with are doing the work of making a better world. This month, our offerings are being shared with DRUM, the Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, which provides support to Unitarian Universalists of color in the form of gatherings and pastoral care. This congregation helped to sponsor DRUM's public worship this year, this month, and your donation will help DRUM continue to do its work and bring FUUSB's name out as a congregation that supports the work of our people of color within our tradition. Your gifts online, by mail, however you choose to do it, will make a difference in the world. I hope that you will join with us in speaking the words of dedication for this morning's offering. With gratitude, we dedicate these gifts in the service of our mission to inspire spiritual growth, care for each other and our community, seek truth, and act for justice.
Thank you, Sam. Reverend Tricia sent us all a bunch of readings for this service this morning, and I was reading through them, and this one caught my eye because it reminded me of all the little kind of things that are in my house, and my sister's house, my brother's house, and with my parents that belong to my grandfather, who was a veteran of World War II. This is called Summation by Susan Daly. I have divided him up, my grandmother speaks into the phone at 1 a.m. He's everywhere now, all over this world. She's been moving around the house for days, classifying the many parts of you, sorting and making lists, making sense. She tells me rapidly where you are, who has you. She talks extensively down to the very last item that you cared for. And you are spread out all over this world. Your eyeglasses are on the faces of 6 people in a third world nation. Your t-shirts slouch across the chests of 35 men in homeless centers in large northern cities. Your braces for arthritis steady the wrists of 9 patients too sick to leave their houses. Your gardening pants and woolly socks are browsed over and examined by bent ladies and young men in a rural Salvation Army store. Your dress shirts are being ironed for 20 men at the Veterans Hospital, getting ready for a big night on the town. Your robes and pajamas and velvet slippers pad the nighttime wanderings of men in Kentucky nursing homes. Your suits are on my father as he goes to his first job after being unemployed for 5 impossible months. Your red sweater rides on my sister's shoulders as she hails a cab in New York City on her way to one more audition. Your wedding ring, for 59 years, lies in my cousin's bureau drawer, awaiting the hand of his first bride. Your one pair of good leather shoes twitch on the feet of my brother as he leans in to kiss his first girlfriend under the glow of the porch light.
So it is Memorial Day weekend, the unofficial beginning of summer. Another holiday with parades and picnics and in Burlington, a marathon. It's a weekend to skip going to that religious place we go to on Sundays. At least that's what I thought when I was growing up. We now think of Memorial Day as a day of remembrance for all those who died in all wars, but it actually began, Memorial Day, what we call it now, initially not in an official, nationally organized way, but it happened soon after the Civil War ended. And many count what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, as the first commemoration. I have told this story before, you've perhaps heard it, but it amazes me every time I think about it. It was right at the end of the war, in May of 1865, in Charleston, South Carolina. The city had been absolutely devastated by the war. Many people left. Many people never came back from battle. It was almost as if the city itself had died. But of the people who were left, many of those had been enslaved and suddenly were not. They were free and trying to get used to the idea and find a way to make a life. There had been a large Confederate prison camp in Charleston on the grounds of a planter's racetrack, and thousands of Union soldiers had been held there, and many had died there. 257 of their bodies were left there in a mass grave. So with the war officially over, those people who had been slaves and who knew what it was like to be treated as less than human got together. And many of them worked for a couple of weeks to give all of those bodies a proper burial as a gesture of their gratitude for the war to end slavery. They dug up the bodies, they gave them a Christian ceremony, they buried them again the right way. It makes me think about these people who had been enslaved, that they chose this as one of the first things they did after they were free. They cared for people that they never actually knew. They didn't know their names, but they knew those lives were worthy of honor, not because they were perfect or heroes or even better than anyone else, but because people had loved them and they had loved in return. Those dead soldiers, they had built lives. They had cared for their families. They had told stories and hurt others and longed for forgiveness. And the people who did that hard work of burying those 257 bodies, they let their best visions carry them along. In honoring the people who had died in their city, they were honoring life in the midst of death. Early in my ministry, as Memorial Day rolled around every single year, and I struggled to figure out how best to acknowledge it, I began to turn to poems, including several that have already been read in this service today. I am in awe of the effort, the imagination that loss and grief call forth from people. Not just the deep, soul-tearing grief of war, but also the more ordinary kind of grief that comes whenever death takes someone away from us. Memorial Day's meaning continues to expand beyond those lost in war to all people who have touched our lives but are no longer with us on this earth, except through what we remember. Some might argue that extending the meeting this far dilutes the original purpose of the day, and perhaps it does. But I think it also pulls us, all of us, in together, even including those of us who have not lost a loved one in war. Because we have all lost someone, and it's not easy to let grief into our orderly lives. Remembering the dead takes time and intention and focus and courage. We need practice and we need company to do that well. And writers and poets help us do that. To remember a specific person and how they are living on in the world even after they're gone physically, that's a wonderful thing to do. The poem that James read in memory, the subheading is in memory of Dr. Frank K. Sewell Sr. And we can imagine him from all of his things that were given away and listed in the poem. Sometimes memory and imagination with time can take a painful story and give it depth and even bring in love without really changing its truth. To look again at a story that has offered us only pain and to choose to imagine it differently might even change our minds about the way we are meant to be in the world and what message we might bring and teach others. I'm going to read you one more poem by a friend, Jacqueline Beauregard. She called this A Visit. What if I came home after summer had left the hills, the green replaced by brittle blades of bronze, and I wore my boots for a run up the gentle rise behind the house, long hair trailing, my arms outstretched, joy overtaking my breathing, great coat unbuttoned and free? What if the house was newly painted? Shrubs trimmed, the steep roof angles outlining an attic holding gowns and baby carriages, a fence in good repair. And inside, dinner was on the stove, my favorite food bought and prepared in anticipation of this visit. And this visit was named joy, not loss. What if you were both still there together? To sit at a kitchen table with a child you had raised and feel it had been good, all of it or almost all of it, and the grown woman at your table in a room smaller than remembered sat back and let the pendulum in her head be stilled? What if the next train brought more family and time ran forward to gather babies, backward to reclaim the dead, and laughter filled wallpapered rooms? Hands reached for other hands. The moon rose, and stasis, growth, breath, and its cessation came with less pain. Would we give life another name? Remembering takes time and intention and energy and, yes, courage. A willingness to stay with the grief and the anger and the love and the pride and the shame. The courage to listen and look clearly, to see this battered world with no pretense, and at the same time to imagine a different world where redemption has happened and war is no longer needed. Imagination and creativity are the most powerful forces, and they are at our disposal. We can, as the poet writes, give life another name in our imagination. Maybe remembering is about more than noticing grief and welcoming it to some extent. Maybe it's also about committing to make different choices the next time, including different choices that have in the past led to war. Maybe it's also about imagining a world where love really does defeat hatred, where we believe in people and they reward our faith, where we reward our own faith in humanity. It takes some creativity and poetry, as well as forgiveness. I want to end with one more poem, this one by David Ray. He called this Thanks, Robert Frost. Do you have hope for the future? Someone asked Robert Frost toward the end. Yes, and even for the past, he replied, that it will turn out to have been all right for what it was, something we can accept, mistakes by the selves we had to be, not able to be perhaps what we wished, or what, looking back half the time, it seems what we could so easily have been or ought. The future, yes, and even for the past, that it will become something we can bear. And I too, and my children, so I hope, will recall as not too heavy the tug of those albatrosses I sadly placed upon their tender necks. Hope for the past, yes, old Frost. Your words provide that courage, and it brings strange peace that itself passes into past, easier to bear because you said it rather casually as snow went on falling in Vermont years ago.
As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me the endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. I roamed and rambled, I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, while all around me a voice was sounding. And when the sun came shining and I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling, a voice was chanting as the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on that sign it said, no trespassing. But on the other side, it didn't say nothing. This land was made for you and me. And in the squares of the city, in the showers of the steeple, by the green-leaf office, I'd seen my people as they stood hungry. I stood there asking, is this land made for you and me? Nobody living can ever stop me as I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. This land was made for you and me. Sing it with me. This land is your land. This land is my land. California to the New York Island, to the Redwood Forest, to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. One more time. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
Thank you, James. Let's extinguish the chalice flame together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with the world until we are together again. Our benediction today is taken from the work of Amanda Gorman and from the poem that she wrote and delivered at President Biden's inauguration. The Hill We Climb, she called it. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll be forever tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. In this truth, in this faith, we trust. For while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us.